Hello class, this is Andrew and I'm about to take you through a tutorial on how to use the tools in Google Photos to edit and improve images that you have already posted and shared on the website that we use as a class. So now you're looking at one of the pages from the website, Google Photos. You can see that this is an image shot by one of our students. And I'm going to go through the steps that I would encourage you to use only using the desktop of your computer. Try to not do this on the phone. Number one, you're looking at a screen that's much too small to really make assessments about photos that you eventually are going to put on a big screen or possibly even print. And the other is to take your time with this set of steps, but try to follow them in the order in which I show them. It's an example you can use in your own work. I encourage you also to experiment. So we have a photo here, which if I click on it and go to full screen, you can see that it is unfortunately not saved the way we want it to be saved. It should have been saved as a JPEG. That's the first thing we are going to correct. This is something you can already adjust for in the camera itself. So if you're using an iPhone to take your pictures, make sure that you do not save the high efficiency version, which is a proprietary version, HEIC, created by Apple to basically force you to use their Apple photo software. We want to avoid that. Since this is not saved as a JPEG, I can't make it a JPEG inside of Google Photos. So I'm going to go right here and download the image. So you can see that it's inside of a folder, which I've called Photoshop Editing Tutorial. What I have to do now that that image has been saved automatically as a JPEG by simply downloading it to the computer, I'm going to re-upload it. And we'll move this new version in alongside the old one. And now you see that there are two images. The first one, which is an HEIC, and the second one, which is a JPEG, more correctly named. I'll close the info tab here. The very first thing we want to do, though, is go to that edit tab. Let me just repeat that it is always best to do this on a full-size screen so that you can really see what you're getting. Now, Google will give you a series of initial suggestions here. I am going to encourage you to skip those. There are some extreme modifications that they can suggest there, but I'd like you to be in more control of it. And the very first thing we want to do is make sure that we have cropped the photo to look as we want it to look. So if I look at this photo, I can see that what I'm not crazy about is the way that the man in the photograph has little relationship to what I see as the essential narrative. I'm going to see about cropping him out and creating a clearer composition. And in order to do that, I'm going to use the aspect ratio that already exists in the original photograph. So that means when I move these corners, they will move in a proportional way. And if I try closing him out, but maybe keeping the drink on the table, you see that I've concentrated the attention on the image. And already, for me, this is a better composition. It involves a little bit of the light on the wall. It certainly has the central figures and the camera person there, but it gets rid of some of the distractions. So I've done that to it, and now I want to make some modifications to the actual image quality. Notice that there is always the chance here to save a copy, and that indeed is what we're going to do at the end. But let's do a few edits first. So first thing I want to check is, do I like the brightness? If I slide downward here, I'm bringing the brightness down. If I punch it up this way, it brightens it up. But watch out, because you could blow out the image, leave things less resolved than they are. So let's leave this in the middle right for now. It's an evening shot. The low light is an asset in this photograph. What about contrast? If I push it up a little bit, I get slightly sharper delineation of the colors, especially in the faces. I actually think this might be a little bit better with a bit more contrast. What about highlights? I'm going to skip white point for a moment, but let's look at what happens when I slide all the way down in highlights and all the way up in highlights. The highlights are where the bright colors are coming into the photograph, and as I see, there are actually very few things I can do to really modify the condition of the highlight, so I'm going to leave that one. How about shadow? if I take the shadow line all the way up, it really blows everything out to a quite bright image. So I'm going to back that down. And what if I came deeper in here? No, that doesn't satisfy very much. Where I think I can really make some difference here is in saturation. Pushing up in this direction, you can see that the colors become brighter, deeper, even a little bit more artificial. And pushing down, I move to possibly all the way to black and white. What if I wanted to take it down so that the subtlety of the colors is what I'm really pulling for? And that means I lower the saturation level. And then at the same time, I'm going to use this general emphasis tool called pop to push a little bit more of the specific content, make those faces a little bit sharper. You may remember that Marco Palombi, our guest photographer, uses a technique called vignette to bring in some darkness around the edges. Let's see what happens when we try that with this photo. You see that the top, bottom, and sides start to pull in with just a little bit of shade, and I think that works here. I think it makes the subjects feel kind of spotlighted. So I've made these modifications, starting with crop and then moving really just by eye through the various other controls. The next thing I want to do is save a copy, because I want to make sure I can look at this next to the one that I have already put into the folder. The trick is, when I have saved a copy, you'll notice it didn't put a copy of it into this album because I haven't told it to do so. So I do, in fact, have to go back into the photos, a more general grouping, and you can see that amongst the three that are here, this is the one I modified. So first thing I want to do is check this one and add it into the album I've just created. Now we can go into the album and look at them side by side by side. This is the JPEG image that I first brought in after converting it from HEIC, and this is the image I result with after manipulating it. You should notice that the width to height ratio is unchanged. That is to say, the aspect ratio is the same as it was. This is something I'd like you to try with a couple of the photographs that you've already taken and create a designated folder, which is your portfolio album where you can keep them. What we want to do now is take the image that we've modified and keep it aside so that we can look at it together in class.